Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Full Scoop. My name is Oded Ran. I'm co-founder and CEO at Clue Insights, the host of this show. And today I'm really happy to have with us Austin Rabine. Austin, great to have you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk.
So usually we have people who work in construction or they work in construction tech companies. We haven't had yet someone who is running both. So this is going to be cool. It's going to be
I'm
busy.
excited to be the first.
Absolutely. So how about you present, you choose which hats do you want to wear first?
Oh man. Well, I guess I'll wear the construction hat first.
Cool.
That's been my most extensive background. I'm new to the tech world.
Perfect. So tell us a bit more about the group and what you guys do.
Yeah, so the Rabine Group is a group of companies that's mostly focused on facility management and facility maintenance. The company's been around for about 40 years. My dad started it right out of high school, and he started just paving driveways up in kind of northern Illinois, where he grew up, and knocking on doors and paving driveways for the neighbors, essentially. And he, over the last 40 years, has grown the business to the point where now we're 11 companies total, mostly focused on paving, asphalt and concrete. But then we also have roofing company, pipe televising company, doors and docks, snow removal, and then the new tech company, Site Technologies. So again, it's not a lot of new construction. It's mostly around facility maintenance and management. So it's seal coating, striping, we'll do patchwork, and then we also do large remove and replace projects. So, when they're ready for a new parking lot, we'll come in, we'll mill off the asphalt, and then repave it. Same thing with roofs. It's mostly maintenance. Again, it's all kind of similar client base, which is nice. So we can leverage all these different businesses and be able to service the same client in multiple verticals. So large property owners, industrial distribution centers, retail, commercial property, all that kind of stuff. So it's been exciting. We work in all 50 states. So we self-perform all over the Midwest. We also have an office in Maryland that we self-perform out of. And then anything outside of that is we use a partner network that we work with. They perform the work. We'll do all the project management and quality control and kind of client communication and sales piece of it. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been a good business. I grew up in it, so I kind of have been learning about construction and pavement since I was 10 years old, probably, when I'd be out on jobs with my dad. So so it's a fun business.
So you grew up looking at the business from like literally day one. What have you seen change in the last 5, 10 years since you started to be more involved?
Oh man, I mean, I think that one of the things that I've actually been really excited about in construction and paving is that it hasn't changed a lot. And to me, that just shows that there's a ton of opportunity. It's been from a technology standpoint, it's been a pretty slow moving industry. On the equipment side, there's been new technology advances like you're well aware of, between telematics and the pavers and milling machines. And we have a laser screed for concrete that, is a 3D laser screed that is basically all running autonomously. So in that sense, there's been some really cool innovations and new invention and technology that's been brought to it. But other than that, there hasn't been a ton, and it's still run from an operational standpoint, pretty old school. We're starting to see, I think, probably in the last 5 years, more of these companies like you, some of the innovative stuff that you guys are doing, as well as different ways of tracking, whether it's the labor or the material. So some of that is starting to come out, but it's I'd say it's been very slow compared to other industries. But that's something that's been exciting to me.
You're very much from the inside, and what do you think? Well, why has it been slow? Everyone knows it's been slow, right? You must have been like dinner conversations looking and says, oh, Dad, that doesn't make any sense. We do it that way.
Oh yeah.
What's your take on it? Why has it been slow?
I think for a few reasons. I think it's been around for so long that a lot of the workforce is comfortable with the way that things, change is hard. So I think that a lot of the workforce is comfortable with the way things have been done for the last, 20, 30 years. And there's been a ton of technology progress throughout those 20 to 30 years that just has kind of gone past the construction space, because I think it is very difficult to implement new things in an old industry and, an existing company that has processes set up. But you're right. I mean, my dad and I would have conversations all the time where it'd be like, I'd see something that's being done. And so a good example of this is one of the businesses that we have today. when Uber started, I was like, we have all of these issues with trucking, right? There's all these issues with tracking the truck, tracking the material, then it's a big cost to the job. So if the truck is late, then production is slowed down, the crews are sitting around, and that's money that we're having to pay labor, not be doing anything. So that, it was around the dinner table, and I was like, there's got to be a way that a similar technology of like what Uber is doing can be translated into the trucking industry. We started something shortly after that we didn't have enough focus on, that ended up failing. But then actually probably 5 years ago, I had another business that started doing something similar. But that's just another example of I think where people are just slow to change. When you're talking to a truck driver, they don't want to deal with putting information into the app on their phone, right? They're used to driving the truck from the asphalt plant to the job site and back and forth, and they like that. And so when you start to introduce new things, I think that gets scary and difficult to get people to do consistently.
Right. And jumping to 2020, my thinking as well has changed here a bit when we speak with companies, and we migrated to speaking with people at Clue about like three elements: digitizing first, then connecting, and then optimizing. And it sounds
Yeah.
like you passed most of the stage of digitizing processes, right? Not using pen and paper. We're seeing a lot of problems in the connecting. People using completely different systems. They're all in silos. They're not working.
Yeah.
And then you cannot jump to third stage, optimization. Is that what you guys seeing? Tell us a bit more about like these three phases at
Yeah.
Rabine.
No, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And so kind of jumping to site technologies briefly, we're seeing a lot of that right now as well, because we've got the digitizing down where we're capturing imagery from a facility. We're able to display that in a way where we're making actionable decisions for the budget, the condition of the facility, how the money should be spent to maintain the property. So we kind of have that digitation down, but then they're using Yardi, and all have different accounting systems, and they've got a platform for their roof. They have a platform for their pavement. They've got all these different systems that they've been using in some cases for multiple years and they're comfortable with. But now we're coming in and we're saying, well, look, you can get all of this information in one spot, right? Now, how much better is that than having to go to one platform for your roof? So then I got to check on my pavements, and now I have to check on the HVAC units. One platform is so important, because I think that's the only way that it actually becomes useful and valuable and saves the owner time at the end of the day, because otherwise it's just, it's a nuisance to be able to have to go to all of those different platforms to get information.
Totally. So you started speaking about the site, and we'll try something new here on the podcast. Those of you listening in instead of watching, you won't be able to see this, but how about, Austin, you share a bit your screen, and as you do that and you open the site web app, you'll talk us a bit about what was the aim, and how did you move from, yes, you're young, but how do you move from basically being a construction person coming from a family doing construction to putting the startup founder hat on you?
Yeah. So just a quick intro, and then I'll share my screen here. Again, technology is something that I've always been really interested in, and kind of, always been keeping up with as things changed. And I was never 100% certain that the family business and construction was something that I wanted to do forever. I think that changed.
Dad,
probably,
don't listen to
right.
this. Yeah.
He knows. I've had plenty of conversations with him. But I think, probably when I was running one of our businesses, Rabine Paving America, that was the national company where we were paving all over the US. That's when I started to get excited, because I could see how you can take this business and industry and change the processes and implement technology to scale the business. The part that I wasn't super interested in was heavy asset driven, as you know. So to grow a business, you have to make a lot of investment in equipment and people, and you're not going to be able to scale exponentially. So when I started to see that there was an opportunity to implement different technology, that's when I started to get really excited about it. And that was probably 7 or 8 years ago. And so within Rabine Paving America, one of the big issues that we saw, and we were actually trying to solve it for a while, which is our clients, large property owners, so like a Walmart or Home Depot, they have thousands of properties all over the US, in some cases all over the world. They had no good way of getting consistent information from their properties to be able to make decisions on where they're spending their maintenance budgets for pavement or for roofs or for landscaping, because what they would have to do is they'd have to send out a local engineer or local contractor to go to get information and come back with a scope of work. Every contractor engineer that goes on site is going to have a different opinion about what needs to be done on that same lot. All the formatting is different. So you would get back hundreds of different formatted reports that you would just kind of have to make gut decisions around, or what facility was kind of complaining the most about where you would spend the money. So we started to fly our engineers around the country to build what we called Rabine pavement management programs. So we would send an engineer out on site, they'd walk the facility, come up with a condition, 5-year plan, and then deliver that in a PDF to the facility. And it was valuable to them, but it's still, we knew that there was a lot of opportunity and things that we could do with that information that just by flying people out on site we weren't going to be able to get all of the information and data that we needed. So then we started to explore drone technology about 3 years ago, and we got connected to a company that basically had drone networks. So they have 5,000 independent drone pilots throughout the United States, and we could access that network to then go out on site and fly the facility for us and give us all of the information and data back. And to start, it was it was cool information, but it wasn't super valuable yet. So we had to do a lot with the flight planning, and we said, all right, let's try to go to, can we do it 50 feet off the ground? Can we do it 100, 200s? And we started to iterate around all of these different image quality until we found kind of the sweet spot. And that was about 2 years ago that we felt like we had a really good handle on what information we needed to capture, and we started site. And so we use those drone networks to capture information, and then we have engineers and facility experts that put together reports and information for the client. So as an example, last year, so prior to site, we had a client where we would do 30 assessments for them a year, and it would take us about 7 months to perform. So we'd fly somebody out there, it'd be a lot of time and travel, and the engineer would be on the plane and then walking the site. So it took us about 7 months. Now, last year, we just completed a project with a client where we did 1,000 facilities in about 45 days. Wow. So we were able to capture all of the information, and think about, when you send somebody out on site, you're getting 10 pictures of the facility. Now we're getting thousands of images that we're able to do a lot more with. I think one of the things that really sets us apart from some of the other image capturing and drone companies is that we have the expertise and institutional knowledge to be able to take those images and turn them into actionable insights. And now we have 1,000 facilities that we're able to kind of take all of that information and put in one spot, a dashboard for the owner that the COO, CEO, CFO can go into and see, okay, here's my budgets, and here's my budget in my California market, here's Texas, and understand why they're spending money in certain areas. It looks like you have to allow me to share my screen here.
Oh, great. Let me do that. And now we're both landing. Here we go. Multiple people. Let's try now. Can you share it now? Here we go. That's very interesting, because many startups obviously go into the space, but they don't have the operating experience in the background. Yeah. So you marry both elements, which is, crucial in the space, right? The industry deep knowledge and experience. What are we looking at right now?
Yeah. So right now, this is a satellite image of a distribution center. And what we do is we capture, so all of the flights are autonomous. So basically, we send somebody out, and they show up on site, they press a button based on our parameters, and then they fly the site and take a bunch of images. And then what happens is those images are stitched together to create what's called an orthomosaic. So as I turn that on, all of this kind of cleared up. Now you get very clear imagery of the condition of a facility. And all of these are all of these are individual images that are stitched together. So I can come into here and I can pull up all of these images separately. Mm-hmm. And let's see if this is gonna, of course, because I'm sharing my screen in a demo, it won't work.
And then as you do that, I'm guessing it's more than the imagery, right? You can start to do clever stuff like analyze it automatically, right?
Exactly. So all of those images now, we're starting to build some AI around to be able to automatically detect defects, tell the difference between concrete and asphalt and landscaping, and we're able to overlay these orthos on top of each other. So now I can zoom in. So this is 2018. I can go back to 2017. And then here's 2019. And then on top of that, I can put them side by side, start to do my analysis this way.
Brilliant.
Say, okay, how is this performing? Is this performing how it should be? Is there a warranty issue? Are there base issues? Is there something else going on in this facility? And then what our team does is they put together, so they zone out a facility, So if I toggle that on, each one of those represents a different zone, and every one of those has information behind it. So we have the zone name, we have the type of surface, we have the pavement condition index, traffic type, and square footage. And each one of those has all of that information behind it. So now we can take this information and now we can aggregate it across multiple properties to show the owner conditions of here's what your docks look like, here's what your drive lanes look like, your employee lots, and start to make decisions around how this facility should be maintained. And then, on top of this one does not have it, but, we put scopes of work in
Right.
each one of these years. So then the same thing, a scope of work will pop up. It'll have the cost for that repair, type of repair, and kind of all of that information that goes along with it.
And do you today sell this out for clients who are Rabine clients as well as non-Rabine clients, someone else? How do you see this relationship going? And as you answer that as well, talk to us a bit more about, are you a fully owned startup of a construction company? Would you tomorrow say, hey, we want to grow the company and go to other spaces that are disconnected from our parent owner?
Yeah, so we made a decision pretty early on with Site that we thought that the opportunity was bigger outside of kind of the Rabine group than within the Rabine group. And for a couple of reasons. So I think if it's within a larger organization, then as a startup, you start to lose some of so if there's let's say, there's a fire in Rabine paving and it's a big job and all of a sudden we need a project manager, we need help, we need people to, do some administrative work, whatever it might be. It's really easy to go to the startup that isn't necessarily making money and generating profit and say, hey, I need your help for the next 2 months, right? And then you just lose a lot of momentum and you're not able to build the business as well as you should. So that was one reason. And then the other reason is that some of our clients saw it as a conflict of interest. So, they weren't comfortable with if Rabine was doing the assessment and then Rabine was also performing the work. So it's a completely separate business, a separate team, separate offices. And so now we're doing a lot of assessments, and we do have a lot of clients that have just said, hey, through this process, we trust you guys. You guys are consulting on our pavements. We like working with you. So we're able to build a really great relationship with the client and the owner. And then they've gotten to a point where they said, can you guys just do the work for us? So that's been kind of a really nice transition to be able to say, yeah, of course, we can, we'll recommend obviously Rabine, we'll handle that work. Here's your contacts over there. And then we've been able to generate a lot more work through that. But yes, I mean, that was kind of the big reason that we separated it all out. And then also, yeah, like you mentioned, it is fully owned by my dad and I, and we've got a couple partners in it that are within the business, but we are potentially looking to raise money at some point. So I think that we look at a lot of our competition that some are doing similar things, some are on their way to doing similar things. They've raised a lot of money. I mean, there's some that have raised over $100 million over the last 6 years, So I think that we have a really great head start because of our expertise and because of our knowledge of what the property owner is looking for. But if you raise $30 million round, you're going to be able to spend some money and probably catch up pretty quick. So that's been something that we've been considering lately, is raising some money to be able to hire salespeople, hire more developers to develop the technology faster. And that's something that I've never really been a part of. It's a new experience and it's been a lot of fun getting to know that world. I like it a lot. I just don't have a lot of experience in it.
Sure. And tell us a bit about challenges. So what's the biggest challenge that you have at the moment, switching back to Rabine Group, the construction company?
Yeah.
What's the biggest challenge you guys are working now through?
So right now, our biggest challenge is, with everything going on with COVID, is definitely sales. I mean, we're trying to, so we have a lot of clients that have kind of deferred their budgets to 2021 that we typically do quite a bit of work for. But I think that we've been fortunate in the sense that we have a good team that was able to pivot pretty quickly and find the clients that are doing work, right? And that was really important kind of early on for us to figure out. But that's been for sure the biggest challenge is just kind of navigating. And I think that 2021 could even show some issues as far as people not wanting to spend as much money, depending on what happens with a vaccine or opening things up more. Like, I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, and it's hard to navigate when people are uncertain and they want to hold on to cash for as long as possible. Pavements is something that is not typically an immediate issue, right? Like a roof is something If there's a leak in the roof, you got to fix that right away. If there's cracking in your pavement, you can get away with that for a little while. It's going to cost you more later down the road, the further you defer it, but it's something that you can kind of look over for a year or two. So that's been a really big challenge. I think that from an employee standpoint, that's been a totally new challenge to navigate. Is obviously we were all working remote for a very long time, for a couple months when everything was shut down. We're still essentially remote. We have probably, I don't know, 5% of the people come into the office on a day-to-day basis, depending on the day. But that's also been something that's been kind of a challenge, is just navigating. Some people are very uncomfortable with COVID and coming into the office and interacting. Other people are totally fine with it. So it's just kind of been interesting to try to navigate both of those scenarios. And you kind of have to be open to both, right? Like, hey, yeah, our office is open right now. If you're comfortable, come in. I'm usually in the office. A few others are usually in the office. If you're not comfortable, work from home, no problem. You guys are set up to be able to do that. This is the first year. Well, so I moved from site CEO to Rabine CEO in January. So it's been an interesting first year to be able to kind of take things over.
Yeah, you got a gift 2 months into the role. You got a gift.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So thanks. All right. I got to figure this out.
Listen, it could have been worse. You could have become the CEO of an airline company in January.
Yeah.
No kidding. As indeed has happened. Yeah. But so as we are in this period of uncertainty that really may be here to stay for the next decade, from a top line perspective, there's a few things you can control, a few things you cannot. From a bottom line perspective, what are the areas that you now you look at the business and you feel these are the lowest hanging fruits for us? That's where we can become more efficient. What's your view now?
So I think that and we had talked about this last time we spoke, one of the big areas that we looked at was our equipment utilization. I think that in good times, we are a lot slower to get rid of equipment that we might not be using that much because, well, we never know when we might need it. We used it a couple times last year and it was nice to have because we were able to get a job done for a client really fast. But in today's world and having to look at the bottom line and make sure that we have cash on hand and cash flow throughout this time, that's kind of one of the biggest areas that we looked at because we were holding on to a lot of equipment that was underutilized. And so we looked at it and said, okay, we haven't used this much this year. Let's look at selling this. Should we be renting a bigger percentage of the equipment than we are today? What should we own? What should we rent? And what should we sell entirely and maybe subcontract out to somebody else? So that's been probably the biggest area. Right now, we're looking at our office space, of course. I think everybody is, and just kind of figuring out what's going to change there. We have a handful of offices. Our headquarters in Schaumburg, just outside of Chicago, has about, I want to say 60 to 70 people in that office. And it's a large space. Everybody has a big desk, and I just don't think that that's going to be necessary in the future. And so it is a large expense for us. That's one thing that we're looking at getting more creative around. I think that the last big piece that we've been looking really closely into is just general process improvement. Again, I think it's similar to equipment. In good times, you might not have to, if something's working and might not be the most efficient thing in the world, you might not look at it and say, yep, that's working. No need to kind of dig into that any further. But now we're kind of looking at all of our processes and saying, are we being efficient with our time? Could this be done faster, less expensively? Can we implement technology to make the process faster and cheaper? So that's another big area that we're looking into, everything from estimating, sales, field operations, really every aspect of our business we're looking at and trying to say, where can we improve on these processes?
Okay, so one of the best ways to make God laugh is to tell the plans. Tell them the plans, right? So let's do that. Let's hear from you. Where do you think the next 5 years look like for Rabine Group and for Site? And we'll put a reminder in the calendar to check it in August 2025.
I like it. All right. Sounds good. Keeping me accountable. So for Rabine, I think we've constantly grown. We've grown a lot in the Chicago market and where we self-perform. And our growth has been always, we're driving sales, we're trying to get new clients, which is great. And I think that that's important. But I also think that we have gotten to a point where we need to look at our business and say, what is the sweet spot? And in Chicago, we're going to do X million dollars per year, and that's going to generate this much profit for us. Well, let's plan on staying around there. We can obviously fluctuate a little bit, but making sure that our processes are tight, we're delivering to our clients, delivering great customer service, great experience when they're working with us, and maximizing our profits. So I think that in our self-performing regions, that's something that we need to get really good at. And then the way that we grow and grow the business is going to be new offices, opening up an office in, we're looking at Nashville or Florida or all these different markets, Colorado, and expanding to those markets and then growing those specific areas. So about 3 years ago, I think this is the third year, we opened up an office in Maryland. So kind of taking that same formula, opening up a new office, finding a great team, a great leader. And then we have a lot of relationships that just from the Chicago market that also translate that into other markets as well. Prologis, they own properties in all markets in the US. JLL manages properties all over. So we have these relationships that we can then leverage when we enter a new market. And as long as we're delivering great customer experience, quality product, safety, we're always thinking about safety, then they're going to have no problem recommending us to their counterparts in Nashville or wherever the next office might be. So I think that's kind of right now is our growth plan for Rabine and the paving businesses. And then from there, I think we enter with paving, and then we have all of the different businesses that can follow that as well. Roofing, we can add on to doors and docks and kind of down the line. For site, we've been very focused on pavements the last couple of years. We're starting to do roofs. So we're doing roof assessments for a handful of clients. But ultimately, the goal for site is to be that one platform that a property owner comes to when they have questions or need information on their facility. In talking to a lot of our clients and property managers, they're like, yeah, I go into Google Earth multiple times a day. If I get a call from a tenant and they have an issue with something on the facility, I go to Google Earth, type in the address, pull it up and see if I can see what they're talking about, or at least have a conversation with them and I can visualize what they're talking about. Well, we want to replace that and be the platform that has, we're going to have more up-to-date information because we're going to have better imagery than a satellite today. They're going to have their budgets there. They're going to have what scope of work has been performed over the last 5 years or 10 years, however long they've been using us. So that we're going to be the answer to any questions that they have on their facilities. Like I said, we're doing pavements really well right now. We're doing roofs well. We're going to add landscaping, facades, kind of a full exterior solution. And then we're also kind of exploring different ways to capture interiors, to be able to do assessments on interiors of facilities as well. I think that's a little bit further down the line, just because one of the reasons that we've been able to scale and expand the way that we have is that the technology and these drone networks have been almost kind of commoditized, where there's a local person on site, or 10 minutes from the facility. They show up after work or on the weekend or whenever they want. They fly the site and we get the information. There really isn't that yet with interiors. So we're kind of trying to work through that. But yeah, for site, it's being the answer to facility managers' questions.
That was a great summary for both. And I think, in general, today's episode really shows everyone's listening the impact that you can get from having a very forward-leaning approach, both on the side of the construction and obviously of technology. So that's been fantastic. We always finish up with a question. If I gave you now a field day to play with any piece of equipment and enjoy it, what would you pick and why?
I would probably pick a skid loader.
Okay.
So I, in high school and college, so I actually kind of had my own little business where I was prepping driveways, and I actually did snow removal in the winter. So I operated a skid loader like every day in the summers and winter. Whenever it would snow, I would be out in the middle of the night snow plowing. And it's been a while. I haven't been in one in a while. So it'd be kind of fun to check out the new technology. I was actually talking to a friend who used to work with me, and he was like laboring for me. And then he would also operate the skid loader every once in a while. And he just started a business in Colorado, and he bought one, brand new Cat skid loader for his business. And he's like, dude, it is crazy. It's got air conditioning, it's got heat, it's got a radio. And he's telling me, like, man, that would have been so nice in the winter. I didn't have a door on my cab, so I was sitting there like all bundled up, freezing. So, so I think it'd be fun to operate one of those again.
I think I already know what gift you're going to buy your children for their 10th birthday. I don't know what's the legal age to operate these, but
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there is a legal age. So
yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure someone's listening is already typing an email to
Yeah,
me
right.
saying there is a legal age.
Yeah.
But that's been absolutely fantastic. So we're gonna have links after this, both to the group, to Rabine Group, and to Site Technologies. And if anyone wants to get hold of you personally, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, my personal email is austinrabine@rabinegroup.com. That'd probably be the best
Fantastic.
way. Yeah.
And we're gonna put that on the show as well. Austin, thanks so much. It's been
Yeah,
absolute
thank you.
pleasure having you.
This has been great.
And thanks
Thanks.
everyone for listening to another episode of The Full Scoop here at Clue. And we'll see you at the next episode in a couple of weeks. Thank you.